think we are on.
5 seconds.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not sure how much delay is there, but let's imagine there is not so much delay. So maybe I can welcome everyone. So, hello, my name is Lucia Dubačová. I work at the Slovak Design Center in the Research and Development Department called InnoLab. And I'm very glad that we are holding today this online Finisáž and guided tour of a wonderful exhibition called Human by Design that has been exhibited and unfortunately, of course, closed in the past weeks at the MAK Museum in Vienna. I would like to welcome all the people who are joining this guided tour. So in the first place, Mária Rišková, who is the director of the Slovak Design Center, Marlies Wirth, who is the curator for digital culture at MAK Museum, and Jan Pernecký from Subdigital studio, who designed the architecture of the exhibition. So welcome everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Thank
Hello.
you.
So maybe just until everybody connects, you can share a little bit about where are you spending these days? Where are you working from? What is your situation?
Oh yeah, like from home, like everybody. And yes, it's I think that now it's really interesting shared experience for so many people in the world that it's even amazing, even in such horrible situation. And yeah, like I'm really curious what will all this do with our work habits, with all the topics we are actually talking about already in this exhibition, Human by Design. It's somehow all what we were trained for and all what we were thinking about and discussed. Now we really have it live and we have to somehow cope with the situation. This is like during every day coping with the situation. I'm thinking always about these like outcomes and some impacts what all this will have on us.
Nice. And how about you, Marlies?
I couldn't agree more, Maria. That's exactly what we are experiencing. Coming from the Design and Innovation Project and looking at how design can respond to the big challenges that we are facing as humanity right now. We actually did think about global chaos, but not exactly about that kind of sudden virus and pandemic. And I just read a very interesting article today, also dealing with the question, how will our homes change in the light of this situation? Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't live in a palace. So the space is limited, and also the entrance way is limited with many people, I think. And this article stressed that architecture of the future might go away from skyscrapers and tiny living units towards living units that can help us cope with such a crisis. And I thought that's really interesting as a perspective for design.
And Jan?
True. Again, I couldn't agree more. But surprisingly, I feel a little bit of a responsibility, or I feel that this is a very important time for us, especially because for years we've been advocating in the architecture the digital approach. We were telling everybody that having the digital skills and being ready for several options and being ready to optimize and cope with unexpected situations, that's something what the digital approach is good for. And everybody was always telling us from the conservative side that no, that's not true, because when something really bad happens, the computers will be shut down as a first thing. And then we will have to go back to drawing with pencil and on a paper. And now we have a really bad situation here, and they were not right. The computers are what is saving us. The computers, the internet is what keeps the world running. And now we are super responsible to actually prove that we were right in a certain way, that now we can adjust or deal with the situation because we should be ready. But in fact, it's very difficult for everybody. It's very difficult for us as well, even though we should be ready for using the digital realm as digital designers. But in fact, it's not that easy. But at least something is still running. I'm very happy that we can have this discussion only thanks to the fact that the internet is still working.
Well, and I would like to link to that, that also thanks to Katarina Kasalova, who is in the background, and we thank her very much, managing the presentation and the pictures during this online conference. So thank you very much, Katka. And also I would like to let everybody know that please write your questions straight away when you have them into the chat, and we will make sure to answer them after each block. So also in the event description for the event of this online guided tour, you can see the whole schedule. So just very briefly, first Mária Rišková will introduce the general curatorial concept of the exhibition. Then Marlies will introduce from MAK Museum the Design Lab, where the exhibition is currently exhibited. Then Jan Perniecki will talk a little bit about the decisions about architecture, and from around 40 past 4 or 40 past 3, we will start introducing one by one each exhibited artwork, and we should be done at around 4:30. So don't forget to write your questions. We will answer them after each section will be finished. So, and I think with this we can start with introducing the very current, very contemporary topic of the exhibition Human by Design, that touches upon questions of the role of design and sustainability. And I would like to ask Mária to extend on this topic and tell us a bit more about the themes of the exhibition.
Yes, thank you. Maybe the first, I will say it's a part of a bigger project we are doing. It's called Design and Innovation, and MAK is our partner together with the Angewandte and Art Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Bratislava. It's supported by Interreg project, and yeah, like now again something little bit political, that again I realized like how different the world it is. We had before quarantine and this isolation, that we were doing really cross-border projects. We have this exhibition locked in MAK actually now, but we are sure that it is safe there. But we are very sorry that visitors couldn't see it for a long time. It was open only for 1 week, and yeah, like we didn't know when we started with this cross-border cooperation what situation we will face in only 1 year, and it's a really strange situation. And now this exhibition Human by Design, we borrowed at the beginning a title from Australian philosopher Tony Fry. People who are interested in design, in theory, and in architecture, they know about him. He wrote in 2012, like kind of symbolically here, a book Becoming Human by Design, and he was elaborating about topics dealing with the whole humankind, about even like role of design in survival of humankind. And before, when we were thinking about the title, we were saying to ourselves that maybe it's too pathetic, maybe to talk about such big, huge topics like humankind and survival of humankind is too much. But as we see, it was really, in a way, thing which really influences now. And so his thesis were that design has like a role in human adaptation in changing conditions. And this is actually maybe what is happening now. Like now our conditions are changing, and we are facing really fast, quick responses by designers who are trying to help, who are trying to find some solutions in this situation. But okay, so let's go back again, like a year and few months ago. Last year, we started to search for some concepts, methods, model situations, some case studies, and for some innovative solutions of designers, architects, and creative professionals dealing with some problems in the world. Of course, we still realize its current situation is very strong, and our topic of the day of our conversations is kind of reduced. But still, we have a climate change, climate crisis around us. We have a lot of social problems. We have war conflicts. There are things which are not stopped by current situation, and so that's why. But still, we were not like the defeatist. We were thinking that okay, like there is many people who are creative, who have the tools. They can think, they can coordinate, they can find some solutions. So let's find some positive examples how to cope with all these problems. Not all, of course, but we chose some examples from Slovak environment. But there are already projects that are on international level. And we were asking about what are like tools, how we can change our conditions, how we can influence the reality. So very kind of old-fashioned tool, which we call now innovation, maybe more, is invention, like inventors, invention. It was really in history like a huge thing, you know, that there are inventions in human history which really changed our like course of history and our conditions. So invention is one thing which we were looking for, and some rules. Again, like in a normal situation, when somebody is proposing some rules, if they should be global, if there are some limitations, I don't know, there are some legislative rules which are really forced somehow from up, then it's really dangerous situation, because always there is a concern about democracy, about rights, and so on. But yes, like if we want to prevent nature, if we want to make our environment safe, we have to have some rules. Maybe architects know about it a lot. There is a lot of regulations which we have to follow when we want to build safe houses and safe buildings. So inventions and rules was like the first part of exhibition, which we decided to include there. Then there is very important places of innovation, because we have to have these tools have to be developed in some environment. There has to be institutions, or I don't know, groups or initiatives. So these places of invention is the second part. Then institutions and change. This is important, especially for our institutions, also for MAK, also for Slovak Design Center and other organizers, because we think that institutions can be really crucial. They can be really mediators of change, and zero impact is another part, because I will explain later. And the last part of exhibition, which is kind of conclusion for me, is called Symposium. Lucia will talk later. Okay, so I think that we can go further. We invited Marlies to talk about another interesting project, which is actually now by coincidence or by our choice next to the exhibition. Lucia, maybe you wanted to do some introduction.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Marlies, for joining this session. And yeah, so Marlies is the curator for digital culture at the MAK Museum in Vienna. And the Human by Design exhibition is currently located at the Design Lab of MAK Museum. And I hope that Marlies will tell us a bit more about what is Design Lab and how does the exhibition fit into the context of its focus. So welcome, Marlies.
Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. As Maria already mentioned, we have been collaborating on a larger scale project for the past 1.5 years already between Vienna and Bratislava. It's called Design and Innovation. And in the framework of this EU Interreg funded initiative, the MAK Vienna also decided to reinstate and reconceptualize the MAK Design Lab, which is a whole floor, more than 2,000 square meters, dedicated to contemporary design. This is very important in the context of the MAK, which was founded in 1864 already as an imperial museum for the applied arts. And our collection holds vast gems of design, as we now also call it, but from the past, which is very, very beautiful and inspiring still. But we also try and focus on contemporary notions and of design. And once we see this picture right now, that is up right now, we asked ourselves in the Design Lab, what can the new roles of design be? So design must not only be functional, but design is also expanding from the physical to the virtual space. It's very important for the interface. It expands to social design, to design for the environment, to designing the interface between the human and the machine. And most importantly, governance and policy making is also influenced more and more by design and designers and design strategies. So in the MAK Design Lab, we looked at different topics. We invited the Austrian design team Mischa Traxler's studio, who collaborated also on this piece with Austrian graphic designers and interaction designers LBZ. But they were also our co-curators. And for me and my colleague from New Concepts for Learning, Janina Falkner, it was very, very exciting to work together with actual designers, because we had a very, very different points of view to all combine into the Design Lab. And maybe now we can move forward with the slides also. And we're having different topics. So in the past slides, you already saw some more physical objects. Here in the image, you can see our section on big data, on the invisible, surveillance design, emergency design, which nowadays becomes more and more important as governments all around the globe and also Austria are talking about using live tracking or apps to contain the virus and to follow your steps. And the discussion around data and how we use that is a very interesting one. What we see in the image, for example, is a work by students and alumni of the University of Applied Arts, who also was involved or is involved in our EU project. And it's called King Gaffer. And the kingdom of Gaffer, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, is obviously dealing with surveillance capitalism. They harvest our data, but we give them the data with our free will. So we can see also here design plays a crucial role. How are we tricked into giving our data, or how can design help us with bottom-up initiatives or different companies, smaller companies, to not broaden this global capitalism? We also asked ourselves how design changes along with us and along with, for example, a view of after abundance, which is also one of our spaces where we also feature a wonderful Slovak designer, I have to mention here, Vlasta Kubušová. The space is currently not in the image, but no worries. in this after abundance section, we also asked ourselves, yeah, how can design help us to deal with a time where we cannot just go to the supermarket and get everything we need for food? And how sustainable is our food consumption and production anyways? So we don't want to preach in the design lab, but still we try to show how much water, for example, is used for animal farming, or how much less water would be used if we decided to have a 90% vegan diet, or even go towards using algae or insects as a protein source, which I personally wouldn't like, but you know, we can think about it, and it's also a speculative place. What we see right now in the image is our wall of challenges. It was also developed together with some school children who surprisingly came to the same conclusion as the experts, which is wonderful. So good new generation. And it says here, yeah, climate change, the water crisis, migration, human rights, democracy, capitalism, artificial intelligence, digitalization, automation. All these questions were tackled in the design lab, showcasing many objects from local but also international designers and teams. And we are trying to really open up this design notion to our audience, and tell them as many wonderful chairs and cups there are out there, design can be so much more than just that. And how we can also participate in designing our common future. Because what we also try to show is that we can actually activate and get some agency through our own tools and skills. So we have a lot of human skills that are more and more important in times like these, that we can use wisely. And with the tools we shape and use, we can together try and make this world a more interesting and more inclusive place. And I don't know, I think that's the last slide. I don't know if my time is already up. So the Human and Design exhibition, just as a last sentence, fits perfectly into our central space, which is an exhibition space that we use for different shows that will have been and will focus on different topics in the design lab. And yeah, maybe we can go back 2 more slides, actually. No, 1 more. Back 1 more, maybe. Yeah. So this view, for example, shows our space that deals with human work and labor, and how design also influences how we work together. And this is also an interesting discussion right now, as many workplaces shift towards the home office. And in this space, we ask ourselves, yeah, what would a world look like if, for example, underpaid work, currently not so much recognized work, like taking care of kids, of the elderly, cooking, doing the household, would also be warranted the same way as being a manager or a business person. And we also look into this question of the universal basic income in this space. For example, we look into open source as a design strategy to help reduce consumption and production as parts remain interchangeable or reusable. We look into care work and the inequality that is still there in most countries between the payment of women and men in most jobs. And we look at the idea of how inclusive can work be. For example, we see here recycled lamps, or we see by Patricia Domanska lamps that have been made by people with disabilities in Vienna. All in all, I would like to stress that this is a unique chance within this pandemic to really rethink how we want to design our future working and economist life. And we also deal with the notion of circular economy and circular design very much in the design lab. And I think Human by Design also does this. We will hear about that later, about the repairability, for example, of projects, or the idea of using one cycle, a biological or technical cycle, to really roll in circles when producing a product. And really, as a designer and producer and merchandiser, already think about the afterlife and the reuse of certain parts of your product. It's so important. So with this, I would yeah, say if someone has questions, Lucia might need to point those out to me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marlies. That was really interesting. It's always very interesting how the role of such places like Design Lab and those kind of experimental corners of museums and galleries become very, their purpose becomes very obvious once there is a big change in society, like right now, right? Like there are no questions anymore, almost. Yeah, so I would also like to point out that Marlies will not stay with us during the whole call. So please, if you have any questions directly for her, this is your chance. I hope she will stay for another 5 or 10 minutes, just
Absolutely.
in case it comes up. And otherwise, I would like to welcome our third guest. That is Jan Perniecki from the Subdigital studio. It's a digital architecture studio, and I must say, from personal experience, much more than just that. They are the authors of the exhibition Design for Human by Design. And so, Jan, could you please tell us a little bit more about why and how were you deciding for this specific way of exhibiting the projects, and maybe what are are there any specific reasons for the choices you made? Please.
First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting us. Also, at the beginning, I would like to invite people to watch the podcast that we recorded already 2 weeks ago with you yourself, where we discussed the architecture of the exhibition in a great detail. Therefore, today I will be much more brief. We as a studio, we specialize in something that is called computational design. You very correctly said that we are some sort of digital architects. What we do is that we design physical objects and architecture in a way that we first create a little piece of a software. That's where we actually design. That's the design approach that we have. And that little piece of a software eventually generates the architecture or the design itself, the physical version of the design. And here the exhibition, that was it was a competition that we gladly won. And we came up with a proposal where we created a landscape of platforms that are divided into several islands because we already knew during the exhibition that the competition, we already knew that this exhibition will contain a lot of different exhibits. A lot of different designers, artists, and groups are going to exhibit various things. So as you can see on the pictures, there are objects, physical objects. There is a lot of text. There is video. There are interactive things, and so on. And we knew that we somehow need to put these things together. And we also wanted to make sure that this exhibition that already looked like something extraordinary, that it could be transferred to a different location. So at the first instance, we were designing for the gallery in Bratislava, but we knew that it's going to travel. Therefore, we decided not to touch the physical walls and ceilings and floors of the gallery, and we wanted to build something into the gallery that can be then packed and transferred somewhere else. Therefore, we've got these platforms, and we also wanted to make sure that they are, on one hand, very visible or distinctive for the exhibition, but at the same time, they don't interfere with what they are exhibiting. So internally, we said, there is a landscape, there is an undulating, wavy landscape of platforms. Whatever is above the landscape is the exhibition. Whatever is below the landscape, that's ours, and those are the plinths. So what you can see on the pictures, there are some tables or plinths that are most of all made of steel, And on top of them, there are wooden boards. On the boards, there are the exhibits, and also there are prints with text descriptions and schemes and all sorts of additional stuff that is important for the exhibition. And as I said at the beginning, we first make a little piece of a software that then generates the design itself. At the beginning, when we started working on the exhibition, we didn't even know how many groups are going to exhibit. We didn't even know what are going to be the pieces that they bring. But we made a little software that generates these tables or prints. It optimizes the structure, but doesn't compromise the design. That's a very important thing, and we'll come back to it at the end. But then we had a little piece of a software, and eventually we knew that we need 54 different plinths. For each one, we knew how big it's supposed to be, what is the tilt angle that is the best for the exhibit. We knew what we need to put on them as a print and so on. So this was the input data. We worked with kind of big data as input parameters, and then we generated 54 unique pieces. Each one of them has 5 to 7 legs. It's got the bottom and top plate. Everything is well marked. Everything is generated in the software. And because this exhibition is mainly about sustainability, or basically at least understanding that whatever we create, it's got some impact on the nature and on the environment that we live in. That's a very important thing. At the same time, in our practice, we focus more on the design itself rather than on its impact. But here we wanted to do both. We didn't want to change the design itself in order to be environmentally responsible, but we actually didn't know from our previous projects how much impact do we have. So here we measured the impacts of our previous project, and we wanted to measure it well and optimize the production. And we ended up with pretty good numbers. We didn't produce that much waste, for example. But at the very beginning, we were even planning to put the waste into the exhibition, into the plinths themselves. We wanted to incorporate the waste. But eventually, we ended up with so little and so poorly structured waste that we didn't even implement it into the exhibition itself. So eventually, it's proven that if we plan well and if we use the digital optimization tools, then we can be quite efficient with the material and the processes that we are using.
I have a question. Can I ask
Sure.
something? So
absolutely, I will be very happy.
So the exhibition took place in 2 different locations. As I already mentioned, it just finished its exposition in Vienna. And before that, it was exhibited in a satellite gallery of the Slovak Design Center in Bratislava. Was it, how was it to work in these 2 spaces and with maybe even 2 organizations in 2 different countries? Were there any interesting specifics you encountered with each, and how did you work, or did you work at all with the characteristics of the specific space that you had available?
The last question first. We didn't work with the specifics of the space where we are exhibiting. That was the whole point. We didn't want to interfere with the space. And actually, both of the galleries, you can see the pictures, they already have certain characteristics. The one in Vienna is an amazing, spectacular place, and the one in Bratislava is a very friendly and cozy space where you want to spend a lot of time. We just occupied the spaces, and that was intentional. We didn't really want to do something that is specifically meant for the space where we are exhibiting. And now, how was the work? I have to say that after the exhibition at MAK was closed, due to the crisis that we are living in right now, it was very disappointing or sad because of all the people who worked so hard on the exhibition. It's the artists that are exhibiting all of you at the Slovak Design Center and everybody at MAK, and eventually ourselves as well. So it was so much work, and I really believe it can be seen there. And also it was a teamwork, so everybody involved was really doing everything so that the exhibition turns out great. And I hope it did from our side as well. But then it closed. Well, at least we can present it this way, and I think we should, and I'm happy we do that. When you're asking about specifics, it's great with the Slovak Design Center that the collaboration was very friendly and open, which is the same with MAK, but here we spent way more time with you guys, and I was very happy that we could do planning together. We could discuss stuff. We could ask you about your opinion and adjust things accordingly. And then so even in the gallery's satellite and Slovak Design Center, everything went smoothly. And then we came to MAK, and everything was incredibly professional. Everybody was very helpful. We came with something that was ready-made, and we only needed some support. But whatever we needed was very readily given to us, and it was very comfortable for us to actually work in such environment. So both of the experiences were very good, both from different perspectives. And we were happy that we could be part of this exhibition. And well, I have to say that I really hope that your experience with us was good as well. We were doing everything so that you are happy with the result as well.
I really have to say I liked the exhibition very much when we went to see it in Slovak Design Center back in the day, when we also made a large excursion with all the MAK staff. Oh, what happy days when that still was possible to sit on the bus together and experience that. But I also have to say, and Maria knows that already, when the show was finally installed at the central space at MAK Design Lab, I was like, okay, wow. I mean, this space and this show have been made to be matched together. And it's really so good to see all the projects in one space, even though,
yes,
it worked super well in the different spaces at Slovak Design Centers, Galeria Satellite. But here it's kind of like, if you might say so, more visually impressive even before you have seen the actual objects, thanks to your wonderful architecture and design here.
I'm so happy to hear that. I've got a little personal short note before I finish my blog. It's the fact is that before we started something that is called a Subdigital studio now, we were very active in academia and also in artistic community, and we did a lot of experimental and artistic stuff, installations. We collaborated with artists, and we also did a lot of our own formal and visual research. And then we started our company and worked for other big companies and worked on so-called commercial stuff, which we also like very much, and we like to do that as well. And with this exhibition, we had again an opportunity to come back to that artistic and reflective and thoughtful way of working, and that was very refreshing for us. And we are very happy that we could come back to this world again, because that's something that we came from, and for a couple of years we were not part of it, and we were missing it so much. And we really hope that that we will have other opportunities to work with such wonderful partners, galleries, and even we are now really ready to work on our own artistic projects thanks to this experience.
Good to know.
That's I think that's very often what happens after working on too many so-called commercial projects, right?
But I cannot say that we don't like them. It's just they don't have the qualities of reflecting the world and reflecting your own approach and seeing things in broader perspective. You're always aiming at one point, which is also good, but then occasionally need to stop and start thinking in a broad way. It's also there is a difference between scientific research and artistic research. That's a different topic again, but it is about the artistic approach that brings the broader perspective that occasionally everybody needs.
I think Maria had a question as well. So Maria,
yeah, maybe I will just comment that, yeah, sometimes things really go together. And with this exhibition, I was surprised that imagine that a few months ago we were searching for the projects, for these initiatives, for all these objects, and yeah, like when we found collaborators like Subdigital, when we could install exhibition in MAK, then suddenly all fits together. And when you see such a great collection of ideas, but not only ideas, already things which are realized, then there is hope always. That I think that we will find a way how to cope also with this situation. And yeah, I wanted to thank to Subdigital, but also I have a kind of compliment for Marlies and for Design Lab. When I saw these images again today, I really remember the feeling when I was returning to your exposition. I still didn't see all objects. I still didn't check all the projects you collected together with Michel and Traxler Studio. But what is important, you know, it's something about identity. When we are working in Slovak Design Center and in Slovakia with design, still there is something like a lack of information, lack of history, I would say. We just established our design museum a few years ago. And that's why we always have tendency to repeat, this is Slovak designer, this is somebody from Slovakia, and so on and so on. So when you chose few projects also from our designers, I was so proud, of course, for this project. But then we started to say, oh, well, there are already Slovak artists, Slovak designers in MAK, you know, for us it's a really big thing. But when I came to Design Lab, I saw that by no names are countries. You know, we are still so used to say this person is from this and this country, and to put nationalities and to put some like kind of labels of this kind, national labels. And then it really hit me strong that, wow, this is great. Like this is something what was really needed. And this is the compliment also what I wanted to tell you, that really this is the way, like this was really important. You have collected ideas and designers from almost all the world, from so many countries, but you cannot read like this designer is from there, because it's really not important. Important are these ideas, and that we are really trying for one thing.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm really touched on behalf of the whole team, which I have to stress again, it was a collaborative effort with Michel Traxler Studio, with Janina Falkner, and our wonderful curatorial assistant, Victoria Heinrich, who is currently watching us. Hi. But also thanks to the trust of our director, Christoph Thun-Hohenstein, who gave us this large playing field, MAK Design Lab. And you're right, we did not want to label any nationalities because of this spirit that we had already when we conceptualized and curated the Design Lab. We are in this together. And back then there was no global pandemic, but there was already a kind of global crisis, if I may put it that way. Apart from the climate crisis, also the migration crisis, concerns about the clash of classes and society, of unemployment rates rising already back then. So sea levels rising, glaciers melting. So all these things were like, it's nothing to be tackled only by Viennese designers or Slovak designers. And this is also so great about this EU Interreg project collaboration. Apart from the administrative stuff, it is really a great opportunity to work together with also more unexpected partners, because many people have been asking me and my colleagues, how does it go together, like the large corporate MAK Vienna State Museum and the small, very young contemporary Slovak Design Center. And we're like, this is exactly what goes together well. Not that we would not like to cooperate with, say, the V&A. Hi, guys. But it's more of the same. So it would be two very large institutions. And I think as I would be curious how you felt about it, but I think this mutual respect and then learning from each other, how institutions can be like more fast or more traditional in doing things. I really thought that was a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I would like to thank to all of our guests, like the official part with their keynotes is at the moment over, and we are tipping over into the second part of the Finisáž, which is the guided tour. And we will take you one by one through each project that is exhibited at the Human by Design exposition in MAK. I think our guests will stay with us for a little bit longer, so maybe we can even get their perspectives on some of the particular projects. So actually, very symbolically, I would like to start with the crafting plastic studio that Marlies mentioned a couple of times, and they are exhibited in MAK Design Lab for a while now, and they are definitely a big part of Human by Design exhibition as well. So it's an innovative design studio founded by Miroslav Král and Vlasta Kubušová, two Slovak designers. And design studio is focused specifically on research into new materials, especially bioplastics. And they have developed a new kind of material called nuatan, which is 100% biodegradable plastic material. Actually, maybe you can already notice from the picture, what I always really liked about showing their work is that it is always the most colorful and the wild corner of the exhibition, and it feels when you go around the different parts of their work, it feels like there is so much happening, and there are different reasons for that. So if we can see some of the specific pictures, yeah, I think it's a bit further. Yeah, here we go. One back maybe, or maybe this one is good. So yeah, no, to the right. Great, thank you. So on these two panels, you can see kind of the earlier stages of working with new plastic materials. On the left side, it's experimenting with different ways of creating the material, shaping it, and producing it. On the right-hand side, you can see the actual use of their material, and they decided to work with sunglasses and frames for glasses, and that is very much connected to the philosophy they have for their work, which is that they're trying to connect sustainability with fashion and with being fashionable and contemporary, as opposed to sustainability being something brown and dull and boring. So you could see their products even on in very fashionable contexts. They have been collaborating with brands like COS and different kinds of shoemakers. And they've been experimenting with different ways of working with the material, like 3D printing, producing also lights or vases and different kinds of other design products. So if you have, maybe Marlies would like to say something specific about them as well.
Absolutely, I'm a huge fan. I have to say, hi Vlasta, if you're watching. because I think the history of using materials in design is a long one. And the sustainability of materials has also been shifting. And I really like what you said about this project. So a young design team trying to invent a new kind of plastic, which is biodegradable and also fashionable at the same time. Because what we all in the design field hear a lot is like this eco-sustainable trend. It looks like boring, or it's like always related to natural colors, but it must not be. And as a keyword, the fashion industry, that's something that also a currently closed exhibition at MAK tried to highlight with Austrian designers, that also there are new ways to be more sustainable or to work with zero waste approaches. And also with the new materials, we have a whole section at MAK Design Lab dedicated to either the reuse of old materials like algae or even urine or different kinds of natural fibers into very, very new innovative materials, or such as crafting plastics, companies and single designers that try and come up with an innovation by themselves, which is not necessarily something they do for large corporations, but start as a bottom-up initiative, which I find really impressive and really go a long way. And yeah, hope the best for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the everlasting battle between form and beauty, right? Or like the function and aesthetics. But so I would like to now move to the second project, Repairably, which I think Mária will introduce.
Yes, I don't know where Katarina is, if she can move to another picture, but I can start to talk about the project, and so when she comes back, she can shift the picture. Repairably. So the project in exhibition is called Repairably Unrepairability, and it's about initiative of a non-for-profit organization based in Slovakia, but already with a lot of international contacts, and of course with a global fight, kind of, I can say. It's about repairability of products. So of course we were facing situation we all know very well, how urgent already this happened, that we are using sources, if it's metal, if it's I don't know, like really natural sources for creating products, and there is a lot of waste from products that are broken, that cannot be repaired. Maybe it's a so simple idea that for many years we neglected it somehow. I'm sure that many of us and our parents and grandparents are remembering times when almost every product was repairable, and there were also resources for it, because this is also important, because theoretically many products are repairable also now, but when you cannot find a person who is professional in this field, or when you cannot find a component which you want to exchange, then when it's still quite affordable for you to buy a new product, this is happening many times. Really, we choose to buy a new product instead of repairing the one we want to use. So so Repairably Association is working with on several levels. One is education, one is explaining of these ideas and working with producers. And another is on a big scale. It's a attempt to change legislative on European level, and yeah, of course, we have to take little steps and then go more global. So they are trying to change legislative in a way that all products would be repairable at the end. They created a manifesto. Maybe Katarina, please change to manifesto. Repairably, yes, and there are 10 important rules. And this is the rules we were talking before, that there are rules which I would be willing to somehow follow.
I agree, just as a comment, and I really have to stress the open source rule that is becoming increasingly important in design decisions, which must not mean that you are stripped of your author's or original rights, but it only means that you can help give something a more sustainable life by having small parts being open source.
Thank you. We will move on to the third project from the inventions category, which is Squat. It's also one of my favorite ones at the exhibition. Glad to present only those. So this is actually a project coming in a way partly from the Slovak Design Center, as it was collaborated on with Maroš Schmidt, who is the head of Slovak Design Museum, and the designer. It was designed in collaboration and ideation with Jan Janoš, a Slovak designer. Squat is actually a bee house. It's a bee house for a particular type of bees called solitary bees, which, as maybe some of you know, are actually more important for pollination than honeybees, and they do way more pollination than honeybees. However, solitary bees need quite specific conditions to live in, and they do not have access to those in urban areas. It is mainly because the way they live is that they create their houses and they fly into little holes that are inside of tree trunks, and they cannot find those, or at least sufficient amount of those in the cities. So Jan Janoš, together with Maroš Schmidt, designed this metal object, which is half filled with concrete, and part of it has holes drilled into the concrete that remind those holes that normally happen to be inside of tree trunks, so that the bees can enter the house through these little holes. And at the same time, at the bottom of the object, there is a larger funnel which allows for entrance of even larger insects than the solitary bees. So this bee house actually allows coexistence of different types of insects within urban areas or even private gardens. So the one you can see at the pictures is the version for standing. So you can put it into your garden, for example. It's also a beautiful way of decorating your garden. And there is also a second version, which is not directly at the exhibition, but you can see it in the illustrations, where it can be hung from a tree, which is a solution, especially for cities, to hang these bee houses in parks or wherever it is suitable. And one more special thing about the bee house is that actually it's made, probably as you can see from the picture, is made out of copper, which heats up to exactly the correct temperature that is preferred by the solitary bees. So in every sense, this is a nice contribution or a nice possible solution. And I've been always wondering whether we could have little parapet versions of these for our windows, for those who don't have gardens, but only window sills. So yeah, this is another one from the inventions series. And the last project, which is also an invention from this category of the exhibition, is a power station called Spear. And Mária will say more about this project.
Yes, but also I have a message from Marlies that she needs to leave. So yeah.
Thank
you, Marlies, very much.
Thank you so much again. And I really love the notion of the bees being the last thing that I hear here, because shout out to Anna Jain and Superflux also, who are exhibiting in the MAK Design Lab, who she wrote. Anna Jain is teaching also at the Angewandte, and she wrote an essay on being a more than human in an approach to design right now. and focus more on design for other species other than human. And I think this is a wonderful example of that. And yeah, with that, I have to say goodbye. Have a great meeting together and see you soon. Stay healthy.
Thank you, and see you soon in MAK.
Absolutely, I hope so.
Okay.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so we can go back to Spear, the last project in invention series. Yes, it's environmentally friendly power plant, and inventor is architect Martin Schickman, together with other people, with a group of people, project manager Marek Georgia and others. They are now promoting this patent because it's already patented, the invention, what is great. And principle of this is that they are using a different shape and this different kind of movement. And this is for me already kind of hardcore science. So I have to trust them, and I trust them when they say that it's like more eco and it's eco-friendly comparing to conventional rotating turbines. It can be used even in urban environments, and they are producing electricity also from running water or from wind. So it's really universal invention. And yeah, like since it is patented, now they are searching for support, for money for creating a prototype, like big prototype already. I hope that we can see it soon, and that their hypotheses are really right. What is the difference? That these conventional rotating turbines, you know them also from like borders with Austria, for instance, but this is inspired by like pendulum effect when the grass leaves are moving. So this is really interesting, and something made for our environment. So yeah, so I think that this invention, what we have in exhibition is a model, like the first model which Martin Schickman made for this. It's like prototype, which is really moving. And also we have there some schemes which they are showing like different types, if it's the hydro or these wind types of this new invention. Okay, so maybe we can move further. I should continue, right?
Yeah, so I just want to introduce the second part of the exhibition, which is the places of innovation, which are like great, fruitful soil for these kinds of projects and inventions. So let's talk about them.
And what we see now, it's already part of installation by EcoBoard. So it's another project presented in exhibition, and it's connected with Martin Schickman as well. He is one of members of EcoBoard, together with other people who are working in this place of innovation, Nová Cvernovka. Nová Cvernovka is a really known space in Slovakia for people from abroad. It's a culture center, creative center, which was recently which resettled from previous building. They are working with brownfields. They are trying to renovate. They are accommodating spaces which are not used. It's already kind of a situation or model which we know from abroad. Here, creative people from Nová Cvernovka, they are kind of opinion makers, and like really strong group of creative people who are working together and who are trying to bring new ideas. So yes, like these places of innovation, we chose them as a case study of such creative centers. There are more of them in the world, but here in Slovakia, we are really proud of them. So this EcoBoard was originally informal, group of people working in Nová Cvernovka, but now they are already forming association, and they are trying to find solutions about sustainable building, about smart architecture, also for other projects, not only for Nová Cvernovka. So EcoBoard is working a lot with smart and passive building. What is really important when we think about creative centers, because sometimes they are almost like factories. When there's open day, open studios in Nová Cvernovka, there is 5,000 people during one day on 1st May. So it means you can imagine this also ecological impact, because they are eating, they are drinking, and so on. So these are really effects of culture, which we really need to take into consideration. So whenever we speak about culture, whenever we speak about something like culture industry, let's say, then we have to also ask how expensive it is to run a big building. What are the all connections? What we have to think about? So yeah, EcoBoard is thinking about green roof in Cvernovka, or new types of cooling, or even there is a project by Boris Belan about kinetic window shading. We have it also presented in the exhibition. I don't know if it's in the pictures, but because it's still like in the, no, we don't have it now, because it's still in the phase of like idea making. So we couldn't show any prototype, but we wanted to have it in the exhibition to talk about. So Nová Cvernovka, we decided to present it by two videos. So we collaborated with Nová Cvernovka on this. Maybe Katarina, you can move a few images. Yeah, there are just before this studio blog, there are just for illustration that we created these two videos. You will have links in discussion, so you can watch them later. We presented overall initiative of Nová Cvernovka and also festival na Suti. Sut is rubble in English, Schut in German. It's like symbolical. It's a metaphor for all this, what we are talking about ecological problems, but also there is a real problem in Cvernovka with the pile of rubble, which they were creating by reconstruction, but they are really responsible and they are trying to do something about it. So this festival na Suti is maybe like philosophical and cultural example how to deal with it. So there is Diana Majdaková, Zuzana Duchová, and other people who started to organize festival of sustainability and art called na Suti, and they already had like two editions of the festival where there are discussions, there are meetings with people, and so on. And then there is a much more, I would say, physical project working with this pile of rubble and with this like reusing of this kind of material, which is studio block. We can see the picture. Yeah, and studio block is a project by Juraj Hariš, and he's also architect. And what's happening here? It's he's using this construction waste, which of course you can imagine it can be a big problem like globally, and he's reusing it and making like new construction components from it. And he's using like older techniques. Before in history, people were working with clay, with sand, like with this kind of natural materials, but he's using waste, construction waste, for creating and using the similar methods. He's like researching what are the like qualities of this rubble, because this is important. When I was mentioning before regulations and that architects know a lot about regulations, this is maybe the point we have to realize, that in past people many times were reusing some materials, but it didn't need to be safe. That when you are building already several store big building, you have to really use safe materials. And this is it, that's why civilization created a lot of regulations how to be safe, but it really cost that we stopped reusing materials and we were just trashing and wasting materials. And this is the time when we maybe can come back somewhere and do compromise between safety and reusing of materials. So places of innovation and several projects which are really interesting when we speak about ecology and sustainability.
Thank you, Mária. That was a very big part actually of what is happening in Bratislava as well, in specific. So I will continue with another part of this exhibition, which is actually focusing around a new department at the Slovak Design Center called InnoLab. It's I'm sorry for the Slovak on the slide, but it just says that it's a research and development department of the Slovak Design Center. It is fairly new, and it aims to be a platform for especially for collaboration with different kinds of external partners, from academic to research and even independent bodies and stakeholders. So at the moment we are in a quite active process of connecting community that would meet and talk on regular basis and discuss different areas of innovation in design, but not only to discuss, but our actual aim is to develop different kinds of new prototypes or demos, and eventually even actual tools that can be in the end used by real users. So two of projects exhibited at the exhibition are coming from InnoLab, and the first one is called Urban Selector, which is a software, or as we rather call it, it's a research platform for testing new algorithms. And actually we are collaborating on the development of this software together with Subdigital studio. So I will definitely ask Jan to tell you more about it. But just to explain kind of where the idea comes from, it actually comes from Maroš Schmidt, from the head of the Slovak Design Museum. He himself is a product designer, and while thinking about how in future can we be efficient and actually very productive potentially in thinking of new forms, he was thinking that maybe this process of almost our brain generating new forms is maybe not the most efficient for our brains to do it. Of course, it's an important part of the working process of a designer, but we were asking ourselves what happens if a computer program takes over this task of generating many different kinds of new forms based on certain kind of inputs that we give it. And we as designers then have the chance to work with those new forms or new shapes that this program creates. And therefore, maybe we can focus more on other areas as working with a specific form or with specific selection of forms, different kinds of transformations of these forms, and potentially then focusing on choosing materials and different kinds of fabrication processes. But what is interesting about this software is that it was developed completely from scratch. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about some basic technicalities of it. So I will ask Jan to elaborate on this part.
Sure, thank you. Do you really want to talk about technicalities, or do you want me to talk about the approach that the software brings?
I would like to talk about the relationship between the way how the software works and how it changes the work of the designer. Yeah.
So, as I said before, for us, it's quite natural to work in a computational way. So we first create a little piece of a software that generates then some form. That's what we do in our practice. That's what we teach. We've been teaching for almost a decade, something like this, and we are trying to implement it into our designer approach. For us, this means that we need to use appropriate tools, and there are several really nice and good tools for designers to create these little softwares, the generators of a form, and we love to use them, but eventually they are not so easy to approach, and the learning curve is pretty steep. So it took me a couple of years to even start using those. Now it's a second nature. So programming is something that we do on a daily basis, but the beginnings were difficult. And we realized that many designers feel that there is some sort of boundary. It's difficult for them to start. So we took this opportunity that was given to us by the InnoLab and by the idea that Maros Schmidt had, that we should be able to select various hybrid forms. So we made a software from scratch that is hybridizing forms. It takes several input existing forms, 3D scans, for example, but other sources as well, and it creates a hybrid between them. But that's not the only thing that we made in the software. We basically made it kind of easy to create something we call a pipeline, which is already this little software that generates a new form. And it should be easy for designers to generate these little programs. Basically, they start programming without even knowing that they are programming. So in practice, it works like this. You select tools just like in any other 3D software. You stack them one after another, like modifiers in certain softwares, and that generates certain result. But you can still return to any of these operations that you've chosen along the way, and you can change the input parameters. And thus, you can change the result completely by just changing something that happened in the past. And this is already something that, when you understand it, it's easier for you to start using full-fledged parametric or generative design software. So eventually, we ended up not only doing the hybridizing software that already is something that is quite interesting and quite a challenge, but we created a platform that can later on be developed to contain more and more operations like this. And one last thing that I would like to say, I really like the part when you were talking about the open source approach. We kept this software completely open source. It's written in a very modern, very safe and very speedy software programming language called Rust. It's quite young, so there is not that much software written in it, but it seems like it's going to be the next big thing in the programming realm. So we opened the source code to the public, and in these days we will make it a full-fledged open source project so that anyone can contribute. We will write down what can be the next development of the software so that the community can take over and use it and develop it further the way the community thinks that it should go. One great thing about what we've done is that it really performs well, so it can handle really large data in a very fast way. Just to mention that this software will be distributed by the Slovak Design Center for everybody to download and try.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you too.
For giving us a little tour the software.
One last thing, we will also make a podcast specially dedicated to the software, where we'll talk a lot more, even about the way people can use it, and also about the technicalities and the computer science part of it. Yeah,
and it will be eventually available on Slovak Design Center website, so we will definitely announce it everywhere. Thank you very much.
The source code is already out there, so you can reach out.
I will move on to the second project coming from InnoLab that is, of course, necessary for many designers, which is the material, and specifically we are filling actually a completely new library of materials, which is located directly at the Slovak Design Center in Bratislava at Kolárovo námestie. You can also find it on the address on our website. This project is actually representing different kinds of materials on these kinds of boards that you can see on the picture. Which presents a sample of a material together with a detailed description, and you can even scan a QR code that takes you to a digital database, which has very, very detailed information on potential use of the material, the chemical composition of the material, and many, many other different characteristics. The library also includes examples of use of for each material, and what kinds of materials you can find there. That is probably the most interesting part for the library we have in Bratislava, because the special focus is on gathering innovative and possibly locally developed materials. Like, for example, you can find there Nuatan from aforementioned Crafting Plastic Studio, which is a 100% biodegradable plastic material. You can find there foam aluminium, which is also an invention of the Slovak Academy of Sciences. It will be available for designers and for public to enter. You just need to make sure that you contact us via email, and we can arrange your visit to the Library of Materials. So yeah, it's open for exploration anytime. We are almost approaching the end, but what is very much connected to material research, and also part of the Library of Materials consists of it, is textile. And as we know, there are many issues around working with textiles and fabricating clothes. And that's touching upon the next topic and section of the exhibition, which is zero impact. And I think Maria will say something more about this.
Yes, zero impact. We also created it as independent part of exhibition, but it's very connected with this group institutions and change. It's a project done by Art Academy, Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Bratislava, Studio of Textile Design. And why we chose it to pick it also like special part of exhibition, because the notion zero impact, I think it's really what we are trying to achieve with all projects which we are describing now. Of course, zero impact is not possible. Like, we have to live, we have to consume, we have to operate in physical environment. So zero impact is maybe some kind of ideals which we are just closing or going near to. Zero impact when we speak about textile and fashion industry. Like for me, it's also kind of self-reflection, because before I started to work with design, talk to designers, exploring different approaches to design, I was kind of ignorant. I was saying like, okay, it's fashion, it's something what is on surface and so on. I think I had really bad attitude, which a lot of public still have, I have to say. Then I realized, no, it's not like this. I was very wrong, because textile industry and designing of garments and so on, it's really important for us. I think that now it's quite known that textile industry is like one of the biggest industries in the world, also one of biggest the industries that are creating pollution. But we have to realize also this kind of philosophical point of view, that imagine that clothes and what we are wearing is kind of interface, and it can also not only protect us, but also it bears a lot of I don't know how to say, cultural and like philosophical meaning. So I think it's really important part of our world. So the Zero Impact project, it was about institution, academical institution, educational institution, which is trying to change attitude to this discipline, and it's working on the very kind of ground, saying that changes in textile industry has to go from the beginning, from the designer, because there are so many like logistical issues, so many steps that are going from the design, from the sketch to really the product. You have to imagine there is a lot of transportation needed. There is a lot of like social issues around it with employment. There is a lot of I don't know, chemistry or chemical industry is involved. So it's really complex. And what organizers from Zero Impact Project did, they were educating students. They were going to factories which are already eco-friendly, and they did kind of science fiction exploration. So students were designing their characters, who were exploring and who were trying to save the earth. We have to use the big words sometimes. So yes, this is Zero Impact. And now maybe we can, if we speak about educational institutions, we had a really interesting project within it. We can move to another picture, which is more like illustration, because there are standing pedagogues who were working on the project, Ruud Mateus-Ber and Juraj Blaško. Ruud is from the Angewandte, Juraj is from Academy of Fine Arts and Design, and part of the project Design and Innovation was a seminar which Ruud Mateus-Ber started at the Angewandte. It's Academy of Applied Arts in Vienna, and together with really like a big group of people, collaborators, pedagogues, and students, they created several projects. It would be kind of exhibition within exhibition. So we decided to present the project only as documentation. I have to say there were 2 exhibitions by students. One was in MAK last summer. It was called Human by Machine. So of course it was connected with Human by Design. And this year it was In Machine We Trust. So the trust was topic for another semester, and students were working over important topics like design's role and responsibility, or interdisciplinarity, and so on. So results of these seminars were artworks and concepts, which were presented into exhibitions, and in our Human by Design, there is presented documentation.
Thank you, Mária. And I will close up with also in a way educational project, which is just a proof of the need and the amazing benefits and potential for innovation of informal education, or rather this was a symposium called Deposium, which is organized by In the Middle, non-profit organization, which is led by Vlasta Kubušová from Crafting Plastic Studio, but this workshop was collaborated on with many international designers, and it was a workshop for I think it was around 15 designers, artists, creatives, even poets from all around the world, who came together for 4 days to explore very contemporary questions around design and its role in society. Some of those questions were, how can we learn from each other and across cultural borders? Or do we need another chair? Or what does it take to make today? How do the local and the global correlate? And what is the role of designer and who educates whom? So at the exhibition, what you can see is are different kinds of outcomes of quite experimental workshop processes. I would say they are mainly reactions to particular situations or questions. And also what you can see there is a collection of books which were brought there by all the different designers who participated at the symposium, which provides a really inspiring reading list. You can find there everything from books like Sapiens to books on materials and society, working process, etc., etc. So Deposium, its aim is to be an international platform for exchange and kind of forward thinking in design and its role in society. And I believe that this second edition is having a goal to conclude its findings into publication. So we will definitely inform you in case that happens, and you can find out through our social media and our website. For now, I think the best place to explore the workshop is on their website. And with this project, I would like to close this discussion and the whole Finisáž, in order to leave our heads open about what design might be and what design needs to be maybe in future. I don't know if maybe Mária would also like to conclude something in the end. I'm mainly maybe wondering whether you're thinking about the exhibition and about the themes of the exhibition changed at the moment. Are they different? Are you looking at the topics differently right now than you were probably almost a year ago when the first ideas about human by design were being worked on?
Yes. Yes, first maybe comment about Deposium, that this symposium we chose as like conclusion of the exhibition because it's a metaphor maybe of our work, and we can see it now. Like now we see every day there are groups of people trying to fight, somehow collaborate on this situation with this disease. And yes, like Deposium already started. They are like very very interesting group of people, interdisciplinary. So yeah, it's somehow a metaphor of how we should maybe think and work. And with this, if our attitude changed or opinions, there is this terrible thing which I can say, that we can say, we told you so. What is really terrible, I know, but yeah, this is it, like what is already happening. And I think this is our really, how to say, duty to be like this, because whenever intellectuals, people who are creative, see a problem, and whenever they think we should talk about it, they have to do it. There is always a small group of people who realizes what is the problem, what is the issue, and start to think about the correction. And yeah, this is what is happening now, and what is happening for many years already. So let's not forget about ecology while we are fighting the virus, and let's not forget about, I don't know, like social needs and like all these complex problems which Human by Design exhibition was trying to show solutions or some case studies.
And do you think that now, because of the change of mindset, maybe in general in society, do you think that especially those projects that are specific, some kind of specific solutions or even already prototypes, that they have a better ground and perspective for being developed further, or that they, do you think it will be easier for them to get investors now? And
yeah, it's complicated. I think that some of them will be stopped for a while, that there will be priorities are kind of reshuffled now, and maybe some projects that are dealing with I don't know, collaborating over internet, and some digital projects will be supported, or I don't know, like some product design dealing with medical problems and so on. But I'm sure that this will really change our mind setup, and I really hope that after all this, what is happening will go away. We will not come back exactly to the point where we were, that we really have to take a lesson from all this, what is happening.
Thank you very much, Mária. And I think on this note, I will wrap up. And I would like to thank again to all of our guests. So today we heard Mária Rišková, the director of the Slovak Design Center, Marlies Wirth, who is the curator of digital culture at MAK Museum, Jan Perniecký, who is from the Subdigital architecture studio, who designed the exhibition. And also, we couldn't never do this without Katarína Kasalová, who has been managing the presentation. And my name is Lucia Dubačová. Hello, Katka. My name is Lucia Dubačová. I work in the Research and Development Department of the Slovak Design Center. On your screens now, you can see two links. The first one is for more information about the exhibition on the Slovak Design Center website, and the second one is for more information about the exhibition on MAK's website. And we will be happy if you leave us any comments even later on. We can always answer those later. And I hope that you enjoyed this version of live online guided tour. And yeah, hope to see you in our galleries very soon. Bye.